Welcome to this week's episode. We missed last week while I took some time to think and really pray about this week's episode, which you may find is a little different than previous episodes. Today we're talking about something most people only scratch the surface of, and that's forgiveness. Not the easy kind, not the I forgive you because I have to kind. We're talking about the kind of forgiveness that feels impossible. The forgiveness that comes at an incredibly steep price, the kind that feels like it demands a piece of your soul. Forgiveness isn't always a triumphant moment with swelling music and tears. Sometimes forgiveness is silent, sometimes it's lonely, and sometimes it feels like you are the only one left holding the weight of all the broken pieces. They don't tell you that forgiveness feels like you're dying inside. They don't tell you that forgiveness feels like betrayal sometimes. They don't tell you that forgiveness isn't a single moment, it's 1,000 quiet decisions to not let bitterness eat you alive. People say, just move on, but they don't live inside your chest when the memories are replayed at 2 a.m. They don't hear the rage that whispers, they don't deserve your mercy, and maybe they don't. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, forgiveness doesn't make it fair, forgiveness doesn't make it okay. Forgiveness is choosing to lay down the weapon even while your wounds are still bleeding. Forgiveness is choosing to live even when you have every reason to stay angry. So today, let's step into that silent war, the battle between justice and mercy, the battlefield inside your own heart, the battle of forgiveness, the way that it really is. To myself the question, why is forgiveness so incredibly hard? And after much prayer and really just thinking about this, I've come to the conclusion that it's hard for so many reasons. Forgiveness is hard because it's unfair. Forgiveness can feel like letting the other person off the hook, especially if they never apologized or even admitted what they did. And it's human nature to feel like we deserve some kind of closure, some kind of justice and fairness. Forgiveness is hard because pain doesn't operate on a timeline. People say, let it go, like it's flipping a switch, but wounds don't heal on command. Sometimes the offense keeps bleeding long after the moment has passed. Forgiveness is hard because it feels like losing control. When you've been wronged, anger can feel like the only power you have left, and forgiving can feel like surrendering, like laying down your last weapon, leaving yourself exposed and vulnerable. It's hard because the pain feels permanent. When the hurt cuts deep enough, it feels like a part of your identity now. Forgiving feels like pretending it didn't shape you, but it did. And that's a hard thing to untangle. Too deep enough, it doesn't just leave a scar. It carves itself into the very being of who you are. Forgiveness feels impossible because it feels like asking yourself to amputate a part of your own story. Now, forgiveness can be hard because it can feel like you're betraying yourself. When you forgive someone who wronged you, especially if they never owned up to it, it can feel like you're invalidating your own suffering, like you're saying, it wasn't that bad, when deep down you know that it was, you know how much it hurt. And sometimes forgiving feels like standing over your own hurt and saying it didn't matter, but it did. It mattered deeply. Forgiveness is hard because justice feels unfinished and our souls crave justice. And when someone wrongs you and walks away untouched, forgiving them can feel like completely abandoning justice, like the scales will never be balanced, especially when the person who wronged us or the person who has hurt us deeply seems to almost be blessed, flourishing and doing well, and it never feels right. There was supposed to be an apology. There was supposed to be restitution. There was supposed to be fairness. Forgiving when justice never comes feels like living with an open case file no one will ever solve. Forgiveness is hard because trust was destroyed. Forgiveness and trust are different, but your heart doesn't always know that. Your heart links the betrayal to your survival instinct. And it says, they hurt me once. If I forgive them, they'll hurt me again. Even if you rationally know that's not true, your survival brain is screaming, don't you dare let them close again. Forgiveness doesn't magically rebuild trust. It doesn't erase the warning your soul screams every time you get close to danger again. Forgiveness is hard because you feel like you're rewarding bad behavior. Forgiveness can feel like giving a prize to someone who wounded you. It feels backwards. Why should they walk around guilt-free when you are still bleeding? When you forgive someone who isn't sorry, it feels like giving them a trophy for hurting you. And your soul and your human nature, your flesh revolts against that. Forgiveness is hard, especially when the apology never comes or it came wrong. Sometimes the offender doesn't apologize, or worse, they give a fake apology. I'm sorry that you feel that way, or, well, it wasn't that serious. Forgiveness is 10 times harder when you're still waiting for them to even understand what they did to you and how much it hurt you. There are even those situations where the apology comes out backhanded and places the blame on you. I only did that because you did this, and I only did that because you did that. And that is just such a hard pill to swallow, offering forgiveness to someone who doesn't even accept responsibility for their actions. Forgiveness is hard when you're afraid you'll forget and get hurt again. Some people think if I forgive, I'll let my guard down, I'll get blindsided again. Forgiveness can feel like handing the sword back to the person who stabbed you. Forgiveness is hard because you think forgiveness means reconciliation, and you're not ready for that. But real talk, forgiveness does not equal reconciliation. You can forgive someone 100% and still never let them back into your life. But a lot of us confuse the two. We think forgiveness means acting like nothing happened, and that's terrifying if the person is toxic or dangerous. And I will say this is a common misconception, especially within the church and within Christianity, that you have to forgive and just let people hurt you over and over and over. And they use Jesus as that example. And yes, Jesus did still love, and we should still love the people that hurt us. That does not mean that we have to stand there constantly and keep asking for more and being a glutton for punishment, taking it and taking it and taking it. Forgiveness is hard because your mind often keeps replaying it. Sometimes you want to forgive, but your brain won't stop showing you the betrayal the moment it broke over and over. It's like mental torture you didn't ask for, and every replay makes forgiveness harder to hold on to. It's hard because the cost of forgiving feels one-sided. You're the one who's been hurt. You're the one who's doing the heavy lifting to forgive. Meanwhile, they may not be suffering at all. And that feels so cruel. It's like carrying a backpack full of bricks while they stroll around weightless. And the bottom line is that forgiveness is hard because it demands something sacred from you. Your pride, your pain, your right to be angry without any guarantee that you'll get closure, justice, or restoration in return. It's one of the bravest acts a person can choose. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's sacrificial strength. It's a strength that not everyone has, and it takes great strength to forgive people when they've hurt you, to forgive people who weren't sorry. I want to take a second to just talk a little bit about what forgiveness is and what it isn't. So we need to kill some lies about forgiveness because a lot of what we thought was wrong. Forgiveness is not saying what happened was okay. It's not forgetting the hurt ever happened. It's not trusting the person again automatically. It's not pretending you're not still hurting. It's not losing your boundaries. It's not giving the offender access to you again. Forgiveness is releasing yourself from being controlled by the pain. Forgiveness is choosing not to let the wound poison your heart anymore. It's saying, I will not carry this rage into the rest of my life. I will not allow it to affect how I feel about myself, my life, my surroundings. I will not let it poison my outlook. Forgiveness is healing, even if the other person never changes. Forgiveness is not just a feeling, it's a decision. Sometimes you'll have to make that decision again and again and again. It's a decision to choose to set yourself free from the poison of bitterness. It's a decision to accept that the past cannot change, but the way you carry it forward can. It's a decision to reclaim your own peace, even if the other person never changes. Forgiveness is a deliberate decision to forgive for yourself and not for them. To forgive because you deserve to heal and you deserve peace and you deserve to move on. The realness of that. It's messy. Forgiveness is messy. Some days you'll feel like you've fully forgiven. Then a memory hits you sideways and the anger rises up again. Some days you'll wonder if you're a bad person for still feeling hurt, even after saying the words, I forgive you. That doesn't mean that your forgiveness wasn't sincere. Some days it will feel like you're fighting the same battle over and over inside your heart and your mind, and that's normal. Forgiveness isn't a one-time event. It's a journey, sometimes a lifelong one. Think of it this way. Forgiveness is like tending to a wound that keeps scabbing over and breaking open again. You keep tending it anyways because deep down you believe healing is possible, even if it's slow, even if it's ugly, even if it's unfair. And I know that within the faith community and within churches and Christianity, there's some twisted ideas and ideology when it comes to forgiveness. And so I want to say, if you're a person of faith, the call to forgive cuts even deeper. It's not a suggestion, it's a command. But God doesn't call us to forgive because he wants us to be doormats. He calls us to forgive because he knows bitterness is a prison. Matthew 18, Peter and Jesus are talking, and it says, Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother and sister who sinned against me? Up to 7 times? And this is not necessarily a word for word. But Jesus answered, I'll tell you, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. That's 490 times for those of you who don't care much for math. So basically, he was telling him, you forgive infinity. So what does that mean, though? Forgiveness isn't about keeping a scorecard. It's about living a lifestyle of release, because holding on to offense is destined to be spiritual death. God doesn't say forgive because the hurt wasn't real. He says forgive because I know the hurt is so real, it will rot your soul if you don't forgive. Forgiveness is God's survival plan for your soul. Jesus isn't saying forgive and trust again instantly. He's saying forgive and keep your heart clean, even if boundaries are still needed. In the Bible, forgiveness never meant pretending evil didn't happen. It meant choosing mercy over revenge. Example of this is Joseph in Genesis, who had to forgive his brothers who sold him into slavery, but he didn't immediately trust them either. He tested them first. He still tried their sincerity and determined whether or not they were safe to allow back into his life in that capacity. And Jesus on the cross, he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, even when they were still crucifying him. And I think that speaks a lot of saying, okay, I'm going to forgive this person that never said they were sorry. As far as I know, and the Bible doesn't record that any of the people who beat him, any of the people who spit on him, pulled the hairs from his face and nailed a crown of thorns on his head, as far as I know, none of them came back to him and said, Jesus, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. He had to forgive them knowing they weren't sorry. He had to forgive them knowing that their evil were still present in their hearts and in their minds. I would have to say that his flesh wasn't happy about that. But his spirit was forgiving, and he showed us on that cross how much we should forgive. While the Bible speaks plainly on our command to offer forgiveness, it does not say that we have to be walked on. It does not say that we have to continue letting people hurt us. It does not say we have to continue letting people torment us. It simply says we have to forgive, even if we have to forgive over and over and over. So if you're struggling to forgive right now, you're not weak. You're not doing it wrong. You're not less spiritual or less good. You're just human. And forgiveness isn't a straight road. It's a messy road, full of detours, sometimes full of rage and grief. So give yourself permission to struggle, because forgiveness doesn't erase your humanity. It dignifies it. It says, even though I've been hurt, I choose not to live enslaved to that hurt forever. So you're allowed to grieve what happened. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to take your time. And when you're ready, when your heart is ready, you'll forgive. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. So just remember this, forgiveness is the bravest, strongest choice you'll ever make. Not for them, for you, to heal, to breathe, to be free. You are stronger than the pain. You are stronger than the injustice. You are stronger than the bitterness. And one day, this wound will not define you anymore. So thank you for joining me on this episode. I hope that you can reflect on the areas in your life where you need to offer forgiveness. And I hope that this encourages you that this isn't the end of the line. Bitterness isn't here to stay forever. Next time, take care of yourself, take care of your soul, and take care of your mind.